I'd like to turn over the session to Beatrice Arnias. Welcome.
Hello, Kara. Thank you for having us. We are delighted to present Brenny Kummer and Nick Williams from the Bartholomew Consolidated School Corporation in Indiana. They're going to talk to us about universal design for learning, which they have implemented in their entire district. So very briefly, our agenda today includes a pretty conversational presentation that Brenny and Nick will lead. I might interject here and there if I want to encourage them to explain a little bit more about what they're discussing. And then if you find that we are going through a transition in the presentation and you have a burning question, you can always put it in the text and Kara will read the questions. We will try to address them. If we cannot address them at the moment, we will make sure and address them towards the end. And also, we will stop 10 minutes before the hour to make sure you have an opportunity to make comments or ask questions. So with that, I'm gonna ask Nick and Brenny to please begin their presentation. Nick?
Yeah, thanks for having us. We're excited to be here and share our story of our district. Brenny's going to talk about some of our demographics as we get started here.
Yeah, so a little bit about us. We are made up of many different schools. We have 11 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, 2 high schools, but then technically a third one that's a project-based learning school. We also have pre-kindergarten, career and technical education, and adult education programs. So our students are pretty diverse as well. We have lots of different representation there. What makes us kind of unique, considering where our location is in our state, is that we have 60 different languages spoken in our schools. In one building in particular, there's 36 languages spoken in one of our elementary schools alone. We have 13% of our population special education, and then 45% qualify for free and reduced.
All right, we can go to the next slide here.
I'm trying, and for some reason it's not moving, but here we go. Sorry.
No, you're fine. So Brenny mentioned our location. We are in southern Indiana. I'm not going to talk with a drawl on that, but about 45 minutes south of Indianapolis. And what makes us unique is that we are a huge manufacturing hub. Cummins Engine Company is headquartered here. And a long time ago, they decided that they were going to invest in architecture in our town. So we actually are ranked in the top 10 in the country for our modern architecture. So that is why we see some of the diverse languages. But we also have a lot of factories around our area. So that also helps, or at least adds to our diversity when most of our surrounding districts and counties don't have the diversity that we have.
All right, so we're here today to talk about UDL, or Universal Design for Learning. Now, probably most of the people in our audience are familiar with the concept, but what's unique about Bartholomew, I think, is that you have been very ambitious and you decided that you wanted to implement UDL district-wide. So I would like for you to talk a little bit about UDL. How did you define it, and what decisions you made around universal design for learning for your district?
All right, so and this is kind of our architecture tie-in. Universal design really is part of architecture. So architects have to universally design their environments, their buildings, to be accessible to everyone. So if you're thinking about ramps, automatic doors, curb cuts, elevators even, you have to design the building so that it's accessible to everyone. But when you do that, everyone benefits. So it's not just people in wheelchairs that benefit from automatic doors and curb cuts. I have 2 daughters, and I know that we wheel them around in their little strollers and took full advantage of all of those accessibilities. And that's the idea really behind universal design for learning.
Yeah, so kind of piggybacking off of what Nick said, a group of researchers from Harvard are really the ones who took some of those ideas from universal design and architecture and applied them to the learning environment. And the cartoon that's up on the screen is one we like to show a lot because it's a pretty good representation of what this means in education. So if we plan for all of the learners in our learning environment, so we plan for everyone's unique needs and their variability, then we help pave a way for all of our learners. So in the example there, the janitor is starting to pave the sidewalk. He's only doing the steps, and the kid in the wheelchair says, why don't you just use the ramp, because all of us can get up into the doorway that way. So that's kind of the mindset behind UDL, is planning ahead to make everything accessible to every learner that might walk in your classroom.
Right.
And
Yeah.
UDL for us has really been around now for over 10 years. So it is all over our district. It's what our instructional framework is, down to our teacher evaluations, down to our support staff evaluations. It's the lens that we look at everything through.
That's right. So the allegory to architecture is wonderful because it's beautiful because it's so simple, right? But when it comes to teaching and learning, of course, it gets a little bit more complicated. So why don't you talk to us about the principles? Also, when you read read about the principles, even that makes it look simple. But explain to us about the principles, and then we'll get into what it meant for you and how you design learning so that every single student in your district has options and possibilities.
Yeah. So for Universal Design for Learning, there's 3 guiding principles, which are shown on the screen right now. And this is all based off of brain sciences and research conducted there. And it's important to note that when we talk about Universal Design for Learning, we don't apply this to only our special education students. We view it as benefiting everyone. So the first guiding principle is multiple means of engagement, and that's really the why of learning, the emotional part of learning, and what gets students excited and motivated to learn, and how you sustain that excitement, even when learning might get tough or might get challenging. So it's providing students choice in what they do in the learning environment, providing them choice in activities. And that's kind of the part that I think is, it's the very important part of teaching, because if you don't have that piece, then the other parts don't really fall into play. The middle principle is multiple means of representation. So that's giving students choices and options in the learning resources they might use to develop that understanding. So an example of what that might look like is making sure that if you're having students study, I was a social studies teacher, so if they're studying the Nile River, you give them choices and resources. They could watch a video with closed captions. They could read about it. Maybe they look at pictures, or they listen to an audio recording. It's giving students choices so that no matter what that student's learning preference is, they have an ability to understand the content. And the last principle is multiple means of action and expression. So this is the how part of learning. It's showing what you understand and showing what you know. And this is one that I think is probably the trickier part for teachers to think of right off the bat if they're new with UDL. And it's giving students choice in how they demonstrate their understanding. So choice and assessment type beyond just a test. It can be doing a video, an audio recording. And we didn't develop these, but we borrowed this graphic from CAST, and they're the ones who did all the research and really put forth Universal Design for Learning.
Right, and you've taken the Universal Design for Learning much further, though, because you have also thought about not all the students that go through high school are necessarily interested in going to universities or finishing in the same way. So tell us a little bit about the different pathways you offer.
Yes, exactly. So because we provide our learners choices, something that developed from this is choice in graduation pathways. So we have a 2-way language immersion program where students have some of their day in English, some of their day in Spanish, most of their day being in Spanish. We have a virtual pathway. We have career and technical education programs, project-based learning schools, and our traditional route.
And as I understand, you've been at this for a few years, right? And so you had a lot of technology for a long time. Bartholomew has been innovative for many years now. And you had to make some tough decisions. So why don't you talk to us about your digital ecosystem and what decisions you made in order to enable universal design throughout the entire district?
Yeah, no problem. So again, we we started down this journey over a decade ago in universal design for learning. And about halfway through, we started seeing in technology especially just kind of, it wasn't equal, it wasn't uniform, and we knew we could do better. So again, about 5 years ago, we probably had some programs that were one-on-one. Some of our schools had carts with devices. Special ed was definitely thought of as kind of an outlier and had a lot of iPads. There was just kind of some inconsistencies there. We also didn't have an online platform for our students. So we had, at that time, over 5 LMSs being used. Our project-based learning pathway was using Echo, and we had Moodle, Blackboard, but nothing was ever, they were all tools that teachers were said you could use if you want to, but there wasn't anything universal for the district. So we got a bunch of stakeholders together, knowing, again, that our goal is to provide a learning environment that supports everyone. And we decided to go one-to-one. So we have 1st through 8th grade one-to-one with Chromebooks. And then our high school are one-to-one with laptops. Our kindergarten has a mix of iPads and Chromebooks at this point, and they're about 1 to 3. And then we went through kind of an intensive study of which LMS best supports UDL, and that's where we landed with itslearning, and they've been a great partner ever since, to the point where we actually don't allow the use of any other LMS. So it doesn't matter what teacher you talk to or what student and whatever pathway they're on, they're all in itslearning, and that's where all of our resources are. That's where all of our PD is that we're going to talk about later on. But it's really created a very equitable ecosystem and environment, not only for our students, but at this point for all of our staff members as well.
That's pretty impressive. I know it is not, equity is one of the biggest challenges in K-12 education today. In fact, if you look at some of the surveys that organizations do in K-12, it's one of the primary concerns for K-12 leaders today, along with safety, privacy, security. Equity is right there at the top, and it's also because it's complex, right? So tell me, what is the role of UDL and what role does your learning management system play in your ability to deliver UDL?
Yeah, no problem. So we look at, especially in our classrooms, we don't ask our teachers to have every lesson plan designed with every single guideline and checkpoint of the UDL framework. What we really focus on is the environment. Is that student able to go into the environment and be successful? So what Brenny and I do a lot of is, what does that look like online? And what does that look like with itslearning? So we're going to start talking to you about the why of learning, or the affective network. And Brenny mentioned earlier that that's like really the emotional response. And I'm a former science teacher and loved getting an emotional response out of students. We were actually sharing stories before we started this about some of the crazy things I was having students do. But this slide actually shows one of the lessons from social studies from Brenny's world. But itslearning really allows you to create an online environment that really sets solid goals. And you can see on the bottom there, those are actually state standards. And this is a look into our planner. So a student can go in there, know exactly what the goal of the day is, whether they're in class or maybe whether they're on a college visit, or we've had students utilize this with extensive hospital stays or homebound. So they can find out what those goals are. We take advantage of the planner in itslearning. They also have Play Plan, which is that start button there that walks them through all of the multiple options for resources and assessments as well. And then they've also introduced Pathways, which is also kind of a self-guided tour that you can set up as an educator or a school district if you want to push those out, but it allows students to kind of pace themselves and keep them engaged all the way through.
So explain a little bit of how the pathways are different from a typical lesson plan. You have a plan here. What is the difference between this plan and a pathway? How are the students able to kind of go at how do you differentiate instruction in a pathway?
What's really fantastic about the learning pathway is it's just so intuitive for students. It guides them through a collection of resources, but you can build a assessment in a learning path, and depending on how the student scores on that assessment, you can have them take different branches on that learning path. So maybe on this lesson right here, over world religions, I build an assessment. I want to do a formative check for understanding and see if my students really did reach that lesson goal. And if they reach that goal, maybe they can jump ahead to the exit ticket or the last activity. Maybe if a student scored an 80% on that assessment, they have a little bit of remediation or review. Maybe I send them through a quick review game, or I can even have them repeat that assessment over again. So the beauty of the learning path is that it's very self-guided. The students, it's very clear to them on what they have to do, but you can build in some of those formative checks and really get a good understanding of where your students stand.
Yeah, and even from a technology director seat, where we see some damage with our one-to-one devices. So we've actually created a pathway for students to complete, to kind of talk them through how to take care of their devices and the most common ways. And we have some built-in assessments in there that they can go through so that we're not just, potentially charging them for damages, but also educating them. And we can use itslearning for that, as well as kind of the more practical educational use that Brenny talks about.
And just to be sure, the pathways are actually being built by your teachers, I imagine, in the professional learning communities, and they're making decisions together about how to organize those instructional resources and what kind of gating mechanisms to put between one step and the next, or when they can skip steps, etc. Right?
Yeah, one of our math departments at one of our high schools, I trained them on learning paths last year, and they have used them across the whole math department this school year and worked together to develop many of those. So if a student is in a math class, the student gets exposure to learning paths and is familiar with them and kind of knows how it's going to go.
That sounds really good. Should I show the next slide?
Yeah, we're ready. So this is the next piece that really helps engagement for our students, is that they don't have to go to a million different platforms to get all of their curriculum needs, including assessments. So itslearning has a library, and you can share it district-wide, or you can share it within a building, or even between a team of teachers. But in our resource adoptions, we've had itslearning now for 5 years, and we've gone through all of our major subject area adoptions. And working with companies now, we have millions of vetted educational resources in here. So instead of going to Google, instead of going to Teachers Pay Teachers, and trying to rely on kind of and take that time to find quality materials, it's all now loaded in the library for them, and they can search by, again, kind of the state standard, topic, grade level. There's all sorts of tools that allow the teacher to get exactly what they want for their students.
So just to be clear, you have in this library some of the materials that your teachers themselves have created?
Yes, that too.
There's some open educational resources?
Yeah. So any teacher can contribute to the library. So if we have multiple high schools, and we have several teachers in every high school that teach English, so they could push out to the library a resource that they have that then a teacher at a neighboring high school could then pick up and add to their courses. So not only do we have teacher resources, we also have resources that our curriculum team develops and puts in here. We also offer e-learning days. I know we're not going to get into a lot about that, but we have e-learning lessons in the library that teachers share out, and that's especially useful on the elementary level. And then the slide that Beatrice just went to is some of our partners that we've worked with over the last 5 years that have loaded content in there. So not only local, but also some resources that we've gotten from valuable partners. And this isn't even all of them. I know we just finished one with Cengage. So there's a couple more that we probably need to add on there, but it includes assessments and it also includes a wide variety of curriculum resources.
And just to be sure that we understand the uniqueness of this is that you can find an HMH book if you need to see the whole book, but you can also find a discrete resource in each one of these e-collections. So if you're learning a topic and you put a topic or a learning standard, you might find discrete learning objects from multiple publishers, additional open educational resources, and also teacher-created or district-generated content, all for the same lesson, which provides you with quite a bit of variety, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's been, again, kind of a valuable tool to guarantee or make sure that every student has access and it's all coming out of itslearning, and they don't have to go to all of these multiple sites like they used to.
Absolutely. So do you want to talk a little bit about representation and what are the ways in which you make representation universal in your district today?
Yeah, definitely. I'll cover this one. And this is an exciting one because there's been some awesome developments that itslearning's had over the last 2 summers that have really helped us amp up our representation even more than what we did before. So we use Google resources in our district. Our staff and all of our students have access to them. And in terms of representation, Google's amazing, but itslearning is as well. It helps us provide resources that are accessible to our students. So giving them choice in learning resources, giving students resources that they can decode the understanding of different vocabulary words, support some of our English language learners, and provide options for students who might have visual or hearing impairments. So we have Read and Write for Google for all of our students. And this has been a great tool for helping our students really dive into Google Docs and slides and G Suite resources and develop an understanding because it has some built-in accessibility tools. So text-to-speech, grammar, vocabulary, the picture dictionary is pretty helpful for some of our students who are striving readers who might need that visual support. And there's audio tools on there as well for teachers to leave students and students to leave teachers, voice notes, as well as translation features. But on the next slide.
Yes, and I've also seen, I think that with Google Slides, if you hit a little button and you're talking to your slides, the Google Slides automatically introduces closed captioning, right?
Yes, that's a pretty awesome tool that everyone here has been super excited about. It does a really good job closed captioning. PowerPoint has that now as well, and you can actually have it in multiple languages on PowerPoint. So hopefully Google has that feature built in soon. But speaking of Google and itslearning, the Google integration and the Google partnership with itslearning was something that really has transformed our district for the better. It's really improved teacher and classroom workflow because a lot of our teachers had created Google resources, and in the past they would put a Google resource on itslearning, but it might have been a couple more steps or clicks on their classroom than what they wanted to. But now that there are features within itslearning to easily integrate resources from Google Drive, our teachers are doing this all the time. Teachers can add a slideshow, like you see on the example right there, easily into a class so where the student can look over those slides before they go through and answer. And from a UDL standpoint, that is so helpful for representation because it's easily communicating those resources so the students can have that as a reference point in case they need it. And plus, Google's resources are accessible, so it's just kind of an all-in-one awesome feature.
Right, and by adding all your Google resources into itslearning, you get to align the assignment to standards, and so now your LMS is gathering data in the background about who is mastering and who is close to mastering and who might need a little extra support, right?
Exactly. And what's also fantastic is that we can even provide more scaffolding and support for students through Google integration with the assignment tool on itslearning. So as you see in the picture here, there's the ability to make a copy for each student. So teachers can easily put a digital worksheet or a digital paper or assignment on there for students, build in some support for the students, and then have a forced copy pushed out to those students in only a couple of steps and setting it up on their end. And again, it's awesome because when the teacher goes back and wants to read and grade and see how the student performed, they can view all of that on itslearning in one screen, provide feedback to the student all on that screen, and the student can easily use some of those Google accessibility tools, all just from going from itslearning.
And the moment that student downloads a copy, then that file gets stored in the student's G Drive, and Google automatically adds the name of the student as the student is registered in the class. So the workflow is incredibly productive. And again, not only easy, but also in terms of accessible, because it makes everybody's job a lot easier, and the teacher and the student don't spend a lot of time with logistical questions, right?
Yes. No more no-name assignments being turned in on itslearning because the name's already put on there. And then what's awesome for some of the students, especially our primary students, is that when the student is answering a Google integrated assignment like the one shown here, the student doesn't even have to go through and dig through their Google Drive to attach it to this assignment. It automatically saves that Google Doc that was made for them as their answer.
And so again, feedback is super important in these cases, right? So, and some of the fields shown here, the teacher can provide feedback and ask the student to resubmit, and the student can respond and ask questions. They can even do self-assessments and peer reviews, right?
Yeah, it's amazing because it's all in one, and it's just so comprehensive that it helps our teachers and our students understand where they need to improve and where they can grow, and really opens that conversation for better learning.
And as important as being able to access information in multiple ways is how the students express what they have learned. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this is, I think this is one of the more difficult ones as a new teacher especially, or as a veteran teacher, when looking at your environment through the lens of UDL. And we're like every other district. It's hard to find teachers right now. We have a lot of new teachers. We have teachers that are on emergency license, and trying to get quality assessments is tough. And then also making sure that they have access to it and understand what the data means. So action and expression through the lens of UDL is really allowing students to show what they know kind of in multiple ways. So it wouldn't be best practice just to give a multiple choice test to a student. We have teachers that will allow students to verbally let them know what they know, and try to build in different ways that students can show that they actually know the material instead of something that's standardized. So itslearning in general has a lot of tools built in. It has audio, video, text, all through their rich text editor that gives our students opportunities to show what they know in multiple ways. And again, they don't have to always rely on paper at this point. So that's a big piece. And then they also have what this slide is showing is the e-portfolios. So we have several classes and departments that utilize this very secure and safe resource through itslearning that students can start, especially in our high school classes, compile the work that they've done so that they create an e-portfolio that they can share out with potential colleges or the workforce or wherever they may end up or have goals to be. And we know that it's going to be in a safe location where we're not having to worry about student data privacy. This is one thing also that we do in our district, is that every senior has to create or finish a senior project. And these are community events that include a paper, it includes job shadowing, it includes a presentation to a panel of teachers and community members. They've done some pretty amazing things throughout our town. But this is the model that we use and the portfolio we use to put all of those together. So it's a great way for students to kind of organize their best work or work through their senior projects.
Yeah, that's great. There's definitely a movement in K-12 education towards considering different ways of assessing the whole child, not just doing a test at the end of the year, but really incorporating more authentic assessment options and ways in which our students can demonstrate their knowledge. That's great. So really, you're in a path. Why don't you talk a little bit about how the UDL guidelines and the framework can really help the students mature the way they approach their learning experience throughout their schooling years.
Yep. So if you have a student that starts in our pre-K and goes all the way through high school and graduates, what we want to see, and if we are truly utilizing the UDL framework, then what you get is expert learners. And these are kind of your essential people skills. And it's right above the arrows on that slide there. But if we're thinking about engagement and representation and action and expression, then by the end, our students should be purposeful and motivated, resourceful and knowledgeable, and strategic and goal-directed. And that's essentially what we're also hearing back from our business advisory group, from the Chamber of Commerce in town, is that these are the skills that are important for the next workforce, is that we don't know what tools are going to be in front of them, but if they can be problem solvers and they know how they learn the best and they know how to express themselves and communicate, then that is the kind of graduate we want. And that is what the guidelines set up for us if we are doing our job correctly. And then also with that, the senior projects are all graded off of those main points. So did the student show that they were strategic and goal directed throughout the process of that senior project? And were they resourceful? Were they purposeful and motivated in everything they did? And that's what the judges, when they do their final presentation, are scoring them off of. So it's really been a valuable tool, not only for just kind of students being engaged in learning the material, but also developing those essential people skills.
Thank you, Nick. This is really very, very impressive because that's what we all want to do, right? We want to prepare students to be successful for a future that is not as predictable as we thought it was, right? And definitely not as predictable as it was for us when we were young and in school. So you've done quite a bit of work, and you have been very purposeful and and you've worked very hard at making it all happen. But things like this don't happen by accident. So tell us a little bit about how you prepare your teachers for this kind of work.
Yeah, so it does take quite a bit of planning and training to get our teachers to a point where they can help the students reach those goals. So what we do is we offer lots of different choice and professional development to our teachers. We really try to make sure that we design our professional development universally designed as well. So we provide our teachers choice in what they can do. And that really starts as soon as they come into BCSC as a new teacher. We have a new teacher academy. We have new teacher orientation the first week before classes even start. Our teachers all get some training. And the new teacher academy is throughout the course of the school year. They meet about once every 9 weeks or so, and they get some training on universal design for learning, itslearning, technology, all the things that we use throughout. We also have monthly workshops, which is the pictures that are shown here. And we make sure those workshops are accessible to people who maybe are busy after school when the in-person training is being held. And itslearning's been great for helping us support professional development because we go through and we put all of those workshop sessions on itslearning, and teachers can go through those resources, still participate, and really increase their understanding as well. We also have a podcast study that's newer this year. So it's anytime, anywhere on the go, professional development. Teachers can listen to podcasts that have a focus on UDL and other district initiatives. Even when they're like mowing the lawn or taking their dog for a walk, they can participate, and we put those resources on It's Learning as well. And it's all in a specific course on It's Learning that all of our staff members, from bus drivers, cafeteria workers, teachers, and principals, are added into, and that is BCSC Connect.
That sounds really good, because one of the biggest challenges every district in this country has is the lack of time, and our teachers are really extremely busy. And so we have the challenge of how do we provide them with all the support they need to be prepared and to continue to learn throughout their career. But you also do work with parents, so why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we want to make sure that our parents are involved and understand universal design for learning and the technology we use in our district as well. So we have parent engagement nights. We have a family tech night where it's open to all families, all parents and guardians in the school district, where they can come in and they can actually learn about some of the different technology tools we use. We have sessions specific for It's Learning where parents can get some hands-on experience in the platform and see what their student sees and really get a snapshot into what their students doing in their online learning environment. And we do school-specific parent nights as well, because we feel like it's very important that we engage the community so they can better support their learners and make sure that we're helping our students become those expert learners as well.
So what exactly, what information can parents access when they enter the platform? What is it that the parents can see? What can they do?
So there's a couple ways we approach this. So parents can log in through a parent portal that will show them kind of the lesson plan of the day. They can check on grades of their student and kind of see how they're doing with their standards and the tasks. So what things they have coming up or homework that they have to do that night. But we do also encourage them to walk with their student, have their student log in and have them go through it with them as well, so that they can really see the full course as well. And then they do have a chat feature in there so they can get messages from teachers. We push notifications as well. That the app has actually helped quite a bit with this as well. Our communication with parents within It's Learning.
So if I'm a parent at Bartholomew, I can download the app, and at any given point, I could send a chat message, or one of my kids' teachers can send me a chat message. And I can also go into the app and see how my kids are doing, what's their lesson plan for the day, how are they doing with the standards, if they have submitted something late.
Yep.
Yes.
Very well. So have you noticed a difference with your parents, or are your parents excited about these features?
Yeah, we've actually worked with a lot of other It's Learning customers as well to kind of learn from them. So if you give your parents a little information, they definitely want more. So that's kind of what we've worked through, is showing them what the app can show them and the parent portal and what those limitations are, but also then sometimes encouraging them to log in with their students so that they can see exactly what the assignment was, instead of just kind of what should be done as that task list or on the planner. So there is a line there where you have to decide how much information is okay to give parents and not.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some of the results that you have seen?
So we've had successful outcomes here. The one statistic that's on your screen right now, and this is not just a one-time statistic that we took from one day of learning. This is every day, course of 5 years that we've had It's Learning, 6 years if you count our pilot year. 98% of our students and staff are in It's Learning regularly, interacting with content, part of lessons, and some of the tools that we showed you.
And I'd say that's really how we've gotten UDL to start up. There's been buy-in from the school board to cabinet to the principals and at the school level. So our principals do an outstanding job modeling it, and our teachers do as well. And it's just kind of become part of our culture that your curriculum and your professional development, if your staff, is all going to be in one location.
That's really a pretty impressive number. So essentially, It's Learning has become really the place where your teachers, students, administrators, and parents meet for everything that has to do with learning.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit more about your students with special needs.
Okay, so this kind of continues some of our outcomes. UDL did kind of derive out of the world of special education, but the goal of it and work with CAST is that it benefits really everyone. But in doing so, when our teachers really intentionally plan for the diversity that we can guarantee them that they're going to get in their classroom year in and year out, that you can really start including everyone more. So our goal is that 80% of students with special needs spend 80% of the day in general education courses. And that is essentially what we see in any of our schools. So they don't have their own kind of breakout classrooms or that are, siloed, compartmentalized. All students in all of our buildings have access to courses and to all general ed classes. And that's kind of the goal that we would like to get to. And UDL, again, has kind of helped us get to that point in thinking about how to design learning environments, physical and online, to support every student.
Right. And you also have some other impressive results. What is this?
So I actually was a former AP biology teacher. So these are AP scores over the last 5 years. And we'd like to, again, think about and tell our teachers, and kind of some of the new teachers coming in are worried about state test scores and how that affects their classroom if they're giving students options besides what would be given on a standardized test. So what we like to point at is even our top students benefit from that engagement, from those different ways that they can learn through representation, and also letting teachers know exactly what they know, not just on, again, kind of a standardized test. So what we've seen even from our top kids is that our AP scores have been well above average global and Indiana averages over the last 5 years, and they keep improving. So these AP classes as well are open to everyone. So again, kind of our curriculum is not set. You don't have to be on a certain track to take AP classes. Part of our work is encouraging minority students to take as many AP classes as they can, and that's been a big priority for us. So this is something that we're proud of because not only does UDL help students with special needs, but also some of our students with very few barriers to learning and have done well.
That's a pretty impressive chart you have there. Congratulations. They do have additional impressive outcomes. You want to talk a little bit about this image?
Yes, definitely. So Nick kind of alluded to this earlier, but 100% of our students complete senior projects, and that's part of their graduation requirement, and 90% of our students graduate.
Yeah, we've been doing senior projects now for 20 years, which is kind of hard to believe. But like, it is again part of our culture. And then the state gives us a college and career readiness score. This has to do with how many credits students are leaving with, kind of where they're going, how many are graduating. And we score well above state averages at 88.7%. And then another piece that are really a lot of work that our high school counselors have done to kind of track down is that we have an 87% college retainment. So when our students, where their pathway takes them to college, what we like to see is that they continue on that pathway. So 87% of our freshmen will continue to go to college their sophomore, junior, and senior years. So that, again, kind of points us in the direction that they're being strategic and resourceful and hopefully getting through kind of a very difficult transition for a lot of kids going from high school to on their own in college. So those are some of our goals and some of the things we're proud of our graduates.
Those are really impressive numbers, I think. And we are at the end of our slides, but by no means at the end of your story. I would like to encourage our participants to make comments or ask questions from Brenny and Nick. We still have plenty of time to have a conversation with our audience.
I will say too, as we wait for questions, our contact info is up there. Our district is open. We will share anything that you guys need or want, especially about UDL, its learning, or some of our general technology use.
Okay, Beatrice and Nick and Brenny, thank you so much. I don't see any questions that have come in so far. So if you're done with your presentation, we can wish everyone a great day and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you, Brenny and Nick, for doing this presentation today. It's always a great pleasure to hear you talk about your district and the wonderful work you're doing.
Thank you for the opportunity to share.
Great. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you.